a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Circulatory system. The circulatory system, also called the cardiovascular system or the vascular system, is an organ system that permits blood to circulate and transport nutrients, oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and blood cells to and from the cells in the body to provide nourishment and help in fighting diseases, stabilize temperature and pH, and maintain homeostasis. The circulatory system includes the lymphatic system, which circulates lymph. The passage of lymph, for example, takes much longer than that of blood. Blood is a fluid consisting of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets that is circulated by the heart through the vertebrate vascular system, carrying oxygen and nutrients to and waste materials away from all body tissues. Lymph is essentially recycled excess blood plasma after it has been filtered from the interstitial fluid and returned to the lymphatic system. The cardiovascular system comprises the blood, heart, and blood vessels. The lymph nodes, and lymph vessels form the lymphatic system, which returns filtered blood plasma from the interstitial fluid as lymph. The circulatory system of the blood is seen as having two components, a systemic circulation and a pulmonary circulation. While humans, as well as other vertebrates, have a closed cardiovascular system, some invertebrate groups have an open cardiovascular system. The lymphatic system, on the other hand, is an open system providing an accessory route for excess interstitial fluid to be returned to the blood. The more primitive, diploblastic animal phyla lack circulatory systems. Many diseases affect the circulatory system. This includes cardiovascular disease, affecting the cardiovascular system, and lymphatic disease affecting the lymphatic system. Cardiologists are medical professionals which specialize in the heart, and cardiothoracic surgeons specialize in operating on the heart and its surrounding areas. Vascular surgeons focus on other parts of the circulatory system. Cardiovascular system. The essential components of the human cardiovascular system are the heart, blood and blood vessels. It includes the pulmonary circulation, a loop, through the lungs where blood is oxygenated, and the systemic circulation, a loop, through the rest of the body to provide oxygenated blood. The systemic circulation can also be seen to function in two parts: a macrocirculation and a microcirculation. An average adult contains 5 to 6 quarts of blood, accounting for approximately 7% of their total body weight. Blood consists of plasma, red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Also, the digestive system works with the circulatory system to provide the nutrients the system needs to keep the heart pumping. The cardiovascular systems of humans are closed, meaning that the blood never leaves the network of blood vessels. In contrast, oxygen and nutrients diffuse across the blood vessel layers and enter interstitial fluid, which carries oxygen and nutrients to the target cells, and carbon dioxide and wastes in the opposite direction. The other component of the circulatory system, the lymphatic system, is open. Arteries. Oxygenated blood enters the systemic circulation when leaving the left ventricle, through the aortic semilunar valve. The first part of the systemic circulation is the aorta, a massive and thick-walled artery. The aorta arches and gives branches supplying the upper part of the body after passing through the aortic opening of the diaphragm. At the level of thoracic 10 vertebra, it enters the abdomen. Later it descends down and supplies branches to abdomen, pelvis, perineum, and the lower limbs. The walls of aorta are elastic. This elasticity helps to maintain the blood pressure throughout the body. When the aorta receives almost 5 liters of blood from the heart, it recoils and is responsible for pulsating blood pressure. Moreover, as aorta branches into smaller arteries, their elasticity goes on decreasing and their compliance goes on increasing. Veins. After their passage through body tissues, capillaries merge once again into venules, which continue to merge into veins. The venous system finally coalesces into two major veins, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. These two great vessels empty into the right atrium of the heart. Coronary vessels. The heart itself is supplied with oxygen and nutrients through a small loop of the systemic circulation and derives very little from the blood contained within the 4 chambers. Portal veins. The general rule is that arteries from the heart branch out into capillaries, which collect into veins leading back to the heart. Portal veins are a slight exception to this. In humans, the only significant example is the hepatic portal vein, which combines from capillaries around the gastrointestinal tract where the blood absorbs the various products of digestion, rather than leading directly back to the heart. The hepatic portal vein branches into a second capillary system in the liver. Heart. The heart pumps oxygenated blood to the body and deoxygenated blood to the lungs. In the human heart there is one atrium and one ventricle for each circulation, and with both a systemic and a pulmonary circulation there are 4 chambers in total: left atrium, left ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle. The right atrium is the upper chamber of the right side of the heart. The blood that is returned to the right atrium is deoxygenated and passed into the right ventricle to be pumped through the pulmonary artery to the lungs for reoxygenation and removal of carbon dioxide. The left atrium receives newly oxygenated blood from the lungs as well as the pulmonary vein, which is passed into the strong left ventricle to be pumped through the aorta to the different organs of the body. The coronary circulation system provides a blood supply to the heart muscle itself. The coronary circulation begins near the origin of the aorta by 2 coronary arteries, the right coronary artery and the left coronary artery. After nourishing the heart muscle, blood returns through the coronary veins into the coronary sinus and from this one into the right atrium. Backflow of blood through its opening during atrial systole is prevented by the Thebesian valve. The smallest cardiac veins drain directly into the heart chambers. Lungs. The circulatory system of the lungs is the portion of the cardiovascular system in which oxygen-depleted blood is pumped away from the heart via the pulmonary artery to the lungs and returned, oxygenated, to the heart via the pulmonary vein. Oxygen-deprived blood from the superior and inferior vena cava enters the right atrium of the heart and flows through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle, from which it is then pumped through the pulmonary semilunar valve into the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Gas exchange occurs in the lungs, whereby is released from the blood, and oxygen is absorbed. The pulmonary vein returns the now oxygen-rich blood to the left atrium. A separate system known as the bronchial circulation supplies blood to the tissue of the larger airways of the lung. Systemic circulation. Systemic circulation is the portion of the cardiovascular system which transports oxygenated blood away from the heart through the aorta, from the left ventricle where the blood has been previously deposited from pulmonary circulation, to the rest of the body, and returns oxygen-depleted blood back to the heart. Brain. The brain has a dual blood supply that comes from arteries at its front and back. These are called the anterior and posterior circulation respectively. The anterior circulation arises from the internal carotid arteries and supplies the front of the brain. The posterior circulation arises from the vertebral arteries and supplies the back of the brain and brainstem. The circulation from the front and the back join together at the circle of Willis. Kidneys. The renal circulation receives around 20% of the cardiac output. It branches from the abdominal aorta and returns blood to the ascending vena cava. It is the blood supplied to the kidneys, and contains many specialized blood vessels. Lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is part of the circulatory system. It is a network of lymphatic vessels and lymph capillaries, lymph nodes and organs, and lymphatic tissues and circulating lymph. One of its major functions is to carry the lymph, draining and returning interstitial fluid back towards the heart for return to the cardiovascular system, by emptying into the lymphatic ducts. Its other main function is in the adaptive immune system. Development. The development of the circulatory system starts with vasculogenesis in the embryo. The human arterial and venous systems develop from different areas in the embryo. The arterial system develops mainly from the aortic arches, 6 pairs of arches which develop on the upper part of the embryo. The venous system arises from 3 bilateral veins. During weeks 4-8 of embryogenesis, fetal circulation begins within the 8th week of development. Fetal circulation does not include the lungs, which are bypassed via the truncus arteriosus. Before birth, the fetus obtains oxygen from the mother through the placenta and the umbilical cord. Arteries. The human arterial system originates from the aortic arches and from the dorsal aorta starting from week 4 of embryonic life. The first and second aortic arches regress and forms only the maxillary arteries and stapedial arteries respectively. The arterial system itself arises from aortic arches 3, 4 and 6. The dorsal aortae, present on the dorsal side of the embryo, are initially present on both sides of the embryo. They later fuse to form the basis for the aorta itself. Approximately 30 smaller arteries branch from this at the back and sides. These branches form the intercostal arteries, arteries of the arms and legs, lumbar arteries and the lateral sacral arteries. Branches to the sides of the aorta will form the definitive renal, suprarenal and gonadal arteries. Finally, branches at the front of the aorta consist of the vitelline arteries and umbilical arteries. The vitelline arteries form the celiac, superior, and inferior mesenteric arteries of the gastrointestinal tract. After birth, the umbilical arteries will form the internal iliac arteries. Veins. The human venous system develops mainly from the vitelline veins, the umbilical veins and the cardinal veins, all of which empty into the sinus venosus. Brought to you by Wikividi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?